is nothing but the placement.
Yeah. And part of the change in that one is to change from going into institutions. I mean, there's a lot that all of us have to do, but if you change that from companies going into the institutions, but create a national level assessment that people need to go through, and that becomes a calibration for recruitment. Then you take away this whole thing of making these institutions a place for placement. Then the students will push for the learning to occur. And I think that's the journey that we will have to undertake. There is some beginnings, but it's a long way to go, because ultimately the push comes only from the market. And when students push the institutions to say, if I learn here, I am not able to get a job, then they will know that the institutions are in trouble and they will create something.
But Mr. Murthy,
one of the, what we were talking about, the academia industry collaboration, I think one of the biggest speed breakers, probably would agree, would be the sort of a chicken and egg syndrome there. Because industry, want quick results, and they are not willing to invest in it unless they see the efficacy of the program. And unless the investment is made, nothing is going to come out of that. So I think it is sort of into a.
But if you look at the IT industry, I think it's been whether it's Mission 10X or a Campus Connect from Infosys and several others, we've been at it at least for the last 8 to 10 years. Right? And we're slowly seeing results, and of course market conditions don't help much in terms of demonstrating if those have, you cannot correlate that employability to jobs, because jobs might have even happened without those people being available, given the pace at which industry was growing. But it is a long-term play. Certainly the IT industry has taken some steps towards it. Of course, like you said earlier, there will always be this quarter-on-quarter push on where is this investment going and what is the yield. But long-term versus short-term is a trade-off.
I'm still seeing a little discrepancy here, so I want to step in. In between, you did talk about, yes, even a +2 student. A lot of people can be trained, and it's a better option. But when you're all discussing, you're coming back to the same thing of engineering, colleges, tier 1, tier 2. So are you really looking at the option of going toward a well-trained +2 person? Are you open to that option? You have to do it at the policy level, probably.
We do.
HR.
We do. In fact, the scale in which we operate, we look at +2, give them a diploma, a certification, which they can apply on the job, and if they scale up in 6 or 7 months, of course, on a contracting model at this point in time, it is not on-board model, a contracting model. Is the result? What is the kicker? The kicker is, can I become logo of sunflower to my shirt? That's the kicker. As rightly mentioned by some of you in the discussion, learnability is still an issue. Learnability is still an issue. The incentive for learnability comes only when he establishes 3 to 5 years of experience in networking, because he realizes that these 3-5 years of experience makes them to kickstart their career with a differential pay which is significantly higher than the common market parity.
There's absolutely no awareness of that also,
And adding to Tan's point here, the hundreds of thousands of engineering graduates which are passing out every year, if that is a ready availability, the mindset in the corporates are also that I pick them up and train them than picking up a 10+2 and training them, because
you're training anyways. I'm trying to figure out what is the difference.
So again, adding to his point, where does those profile go?
That's one aspect to it. The other aspect is, but why? Why do we have to go to the 10+2 when you have so many to begin with, right? And so there is no need to go. And second, what will happen to them? There's only so far they will go if they stop learning at 10+2. I mean, with 30 years in the industry, I still have to learn. Right? So why do we want them to get out of learning after 10+2? And that's something we have to look at. Right?
See, I'll tell you where one sharp difference comes in. It is when you are getting a project and when you're sending the profiles to your clients externally.
Yes.
Now, if you're sending a profile which is a BTech or a BE, it makes a marked difference.
Yes.
In terms, irrespective of their basic, because you don't, unless you pass entry level, you don't even get the project. So in that area, it makes a significant difference.
Yes. I think that's a key influencing factor, I feel.
So that's a scalability, right? If you have to scale your services, your ability to scale your services comes from the people that you have in the system. So if you want to go from doing development to consulting, you are not going to be able to do that if you take that +2. Right? So
I have a view, I always believe if you look at the scale at which India operates, I think you have to apply multiple methods to bring change. As he rightly said, there are 8.5 lakh or 10 lakhs engineer producing, and today if you look at all said and done, campus recruitment by software companies is the biggest source of employment for most of the engineering colleges in our country, right? But if you look at that numbers, but there are distant places where possibly you will like to, train some of the 10 plus or 12th pass people and train them. Because the number is so big, you look at the volume of employability issue in India, and some of the statistics which is given by National Skill Development Corporation and all, there is a fundamental change which is required, because let us get that very clear. I mean, there is a lot of research which says that, but primarily if you see that in the three way we are differentiated, in India, it's the person which matters. Person means if you come with a degree, if you come with a post-graduation, if you come with an MBA, it is over a period of time. It's an Asian mentality of person.
Yes.
As opposed to, as he rightly said, in North America, it is a performance. Whereas in European countries, it is a position. This is the three focus. In European countries, it is more of a position. Once you attain a position, you will continue to be. And that's why they have most of very strong archaic labor laws as far as separation is concerned. It's most difficult to separate people in Europe. Whereas in India, when we recruit, obviously, because the other option, as you rightly said, I can tell you one of my experiences, Indian Institute of Science, many years back. It's one of the pioneer institute, and we used to run a campaign in those days in Saskatchewan, which is called, Unleashing the Indian Creativity. So I used to go for campus recruitment. And then we said that, okay, that's a great company. And those days we are supposed to say that Saskatchewan is an Indian company, and if you want to work on technologies, here is the company. We were still not even gone for the IPO, okay? We are a startup. And I'll tell you my personal experience. And I went there and kind of did a campus placement initial talk along with one of my colleagues who was an ex-professor in IIT Mumbai, very, very passionate about whole Indianness. And then at the end of the day, we said that who wants to join the company? And we used to look at electronics, electrical, and so there are close to about 240 plus, and this is the #1 college. And when we went there, in the morning, evening, my mailbox was full, because the reason is we had about 240 people, and they had this system of dream company. But when my recruiting team went, they said, how we are going to interview 240 people? It's very easy for a head of HR, you go and give this passionate talk, but what is the basis on which we will look? So ultimately, what is the best way to look up? You tell me. CGPA.
Yes.
What is the way of transparent? How you can be transparent? So I mean, I can assume, like when he is looking at people and some 60,000 people are applying, there is no other way, no other fair way to judge but for going this. So this is the problem in our country. I don't think there is no other way, but I think we have to make all this put together in terms of finding out a solution. You need a NSDC, you need Infosys, Wipro like organization. Still we are not able to cope up with the kind of pressure and with the numbers what we are talking about. I think all need to continue, and therefore possibly we'll get some change, because it's a huge scale of change we are talking about. Because no other country in the world produces 200,000 MBAs and 100,000.
That's the other problem.
Engineering
engineers. No other country in the world. Even China doesn't produce them.
See, one thing, coming back to your point in terms of hiring. In India, a degree is not a qualification mechanism, it's a filtering mechanism. As you correctly said, it is not how you qualify a person he has a degree. You cannot, as you said, you cannot interview 240 people, so the first thing that you do is you filter them out. He has a BTech with 90%, he has a BSc with 80%, let's filter them out. Let's get some practical number that I can interview. So it's more of a filtering mechanism rather than a qualification mechanism. Having said that, there has to be some change towards looking at the skill sets if you really want to develop, rather than losing out on that skill. I agree with you that we have an obligation of getting or catering to the people that have gone through the degree. Personally, in terms of a degree in our field, in the IT field, more than the technical knowledge, what you actually should gain out of a degree is your professional competence.
Yep.
Public speaking, personality development, and those aspects are not covered.
Right.
In the colleges right now, those aspects are not covered. Now, having said that, there still should be an eye and a leniency towards people that are coming out that are exceptional. So rather than filtering them out just because they don't have a degree, I think we should have some middle ground that we need to give them that capability that we'll lose out on a lot of talented people just like the person that you're talking, the kid that's 15 years old. We need to take a look at that. That's where the US has progressed in technology. Even today, if you really look at that, our technology innovations are not coming from India.
Yeah.
Innovations are coming from there. The reason for that is they're focusing on those type of things. If you look at technology, look at the devices that are coming out, the cloud computing. Yes, we implement that. Yes, we go out there and we learn it. But the innovation, the R&D is coming from there.
And that's where I think creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurship will make a difference. Because for that 15-year-old, if there is an easy way to set up a company and prove the innovation, that will work, rather than join an Infosys or
Absolutely,
Wipro, because he will be one of 150,000 people, right? There's only so much of his innovation that will come out.
Absolutely.
Therefore, it is our effort to create an ecosystem that facilitates somebody of that kind of a talent to go create something of their own can make a huge difference. Not just make an exception to hire one, because there's no way I can explain to the other 150,000 people why this person's qualification is so different.
Look at our industry. Our industry has been changed, if you really look at it, not by graduates. Our industry has been changed by undergraduates or 10+2s. Bill Gates, Facebook, these are created people. Yahoo, the search engine, the first search engine really was created by people that were geeks. They had no qualification. And if they had not, they had gone through the same rut. And that, I totally agree with you. That's because the ecosystem in the US was about...
So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So that's not there.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I also had in terms of experience, a lot of times that's another thing that we always overlook. We give too much emphasis on experience. Now, experience, you need to qualify and quantify experience before you look at 5 years and 3 years and 2 years. When we hire people, and I've done that in the past as well, we look at the number of years he has done something rather than what he's done. I need a 3 years experience guy. This guy has been working in a company doing the same exact thing for 10 years. He knows that protocol inside out. But I'm hiring a person that needs to go into 10 different places, do 10 different protocols. That guy might have 10 years of experience. I would not hire him. Because he has 10 years of experience, but doing what? So a lot of times we hire based on this quantity of experience rather than the actual quality of what he's done. I personally, there's a program like the expert program from Cisco, which is the CCIE, which basically teaches everybody, the students, all the way up to the expert level on different technology. I would hire that person if he has the technology implementation of that versus a person that has been doing the same thing for 5 years. And that's something that needs to be put into the hiring mechanism, where a person that might have the skill sets, might not have experience, might benefit the company. And it's not happening again just because of that 2 years or 3 years of experience.
So again, Kanwar, I would say now it's evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm sure most of you will agree that now when we start filtering or when we start evaluating our candidates from the outside world, the focus is on what he's bringing
to the table
for us to the table,
yeah,
than just clicking and staying and sticking to the fact that it's a 3-year, it's a 5-year. No, I think that's also where we have evolved, and especially in niche skills, securities and whatever on the IT domains and even on the application side. It's more that how much he's performed, he's done, and he knows it all. So I think even that phase has kind of evolved.
But it's still in that.
Yeah, so we are not there, but it's kind of making a difference. So if you look at my type of a setup or AC Xerox type of a setup where we do just in time, it's very important for us to grab someone who knows it. Whether he comes with 2 years or whether he comes with 5 years and I have to fix him in a 10-year, no. And that's where, you know, those fast trackers and which Wipros and Infosys, and I mean, we are evolving. The world is really moving fast when it comes to IT now.
So I think at the entry level, I think it still is a problem, and I think it will continue to be a problem where we will look at graduates compared to undergraduates.
Yeah, that's absolutely
But
true.
as far as experienced folks is concerned, hiring experienced folks is concerned, I think companies have started making that exception. Especially, if you look at progressive companies like Yahoo's and Google's of the world, they don't put a lot of emphasis on the education, but the skill that the person is bringing to the table. Why talk about those companies alone? I think there are other companies also. I mean, GE typically, GE is such a traditional company, but even in GE, for certain skills like networking or graphic designers, we don't look at a formal degree at all. I mean,
That's
basically what the person is bringing to the table, what kind of work is done in the past, and how we can shape up and scale up in the current setup is what we do.
What role does certification also plays there somewhere? For example, if guy is CCNA certified, CCNP, then you would look him at differently than obviously the person. It's almost like a stamp,
Right.
that he has his skills.
It is very, very unfortunate that the so-called certifications do not hold as much value for us, because we've not been successful in hiring those kind of people. I think they are more theoretical. They would have just passed an examination, but they wouldn't have any practical knowledge. So I think coming back to the point of training institutes, I think they've not been able to establish credibility with the corporate world. Okay, I'm sorry for being blunt here.
No, absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But that's the
That's
case.
what I was actually pointing out. Remember, I told you that the certification part of it, where you said that we do it in-house. Absolutely. When you do it in-house, it's completely different.
Yeah.
But if you look at from what you're talking about, coming here from outside, as I said, it's an easier test to pass. It's just multiple choice answers. People are cramming it and passing it. And that's what that needs to change.
Yeah. I think it's become a business and churning numbers, batch on batch, than imparting real practical knowledge. To the
Very
students
true.
who are coming in. So I think a lot of focus needs to be put there. I think training institutes have to do a lot more than what they can
I
do.
totally agree.
Yeah, and one of the ironies today is that it's better off apparently to be an average BSc than an average engineer. A few months back we had a walk-in drive, two adjacent weekends. One for the same positions. One was for BScs who had passed out freshers, and one for engineers. We had 2.5 times number of engineers as a number of BScs.
Okay.
Because for engineers, once you become an engineer, you have some self-imposed constraints into what sort of work and what sort of company you can do. BScs, anything is up for grabs. So the number of BScs who actually come for interview is much lesser.
Yeah, I think from you spoke about years of experience. I remember this conversation when TK Kurian was heading Wipro BPO. I was doing market maker talent acquisition effort for him, and typical market makers are who understand IT BPO together, and he wanted a flair bit of technology understanding too, from a practical or practicing worldview. So I shortlisted a guy from MIT US, and his CV was 4 years of experience, all the 4 years in the campus, doing a variety of activities and job profiles. So I went with the CV to him and I said, boss, the one issue I have is he's been in MIT doing 4 years, 4 different roles. Here comes the reply. He said, maybe in 6 months I get a return on investment of this guy. Hire him next day. So, and this boy was 26, 27 years old, who joined us from MIT. It costed me a bomb, equivalent to a vice president's salary. We hired him. Exactly after 1 year he left, but he has done it all. He at least converted at least half a dozen clients on the pitch side. We used to take him along for pitches in the United States, and he has done a marvelous job in selling BPO by understanding technology very well. I think that's a classic example of quantity doesn't matter today. I think CEOs also realizing that, but traditional hiring managers, as Pallab said, I think have the tendency to look at the quantity and the number of changes which he has made in his career.
But as you fundamentally said, I think in India, all the 3 parameters, education, formal education, experience, degree, diploma in India, primarily used as a filtering mechanism rather than determining the exact skill set, the exact knowledge, the attitude the person brings into the job.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it's a function of scale.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's probably because of the numbers.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is because of the numbers.
So, I think we have a very patient audience till now. So we would like to actually throw open the floor to the audience themselves and see if we have any questions. So, grab the mic, just state your name and maybe any particular speaker whom you want to actually ask the question to. Otherwise, you can ask the panel.
Yeah, this is Sanjay. I'm from Hurray. We run our own consultancy in Bangalore. The question, it's not a question, it's an observation that you all spoke about the entry-level issues and then the mid-level and the challenges at the mid-level. In the mid-level, the positioning of India has been the biggest thing. The growth of the industry has ensured that anybody who is after 3 years or 4 years is a team lead, starts working on a Excel sheet rather than the
device itself.
You cannot, but the things are changing. We are also evolving, the numbers are growing. There are people now, 7 years people have started. That change, people are coming to us and saying, give us a change because we are 7 years now, I need to get into the next role. And you are not giving. It's a industry which has changed. So I think the mid-level challenges would be automatically catered to in the next couple of years. Because we have grown 20 years, slowly the people, when we started, it was in hundreds and thousands we got, and now we have the challenge. But one question that comes always in the entry-level issues are, when we are going and getting a 17 lakh or 20 lakh salary to a IITN versus people, engineers available at a 7,000, 6,000 rupees coming to you, we really need to see what are we doing to the industry. There is a disparity, there is we really need to think, where are we going? Why this is, people are available and they are coming to the small time players, they're going there, getting the certificates. All of you know, sitting out here, that we are doing this. 2 years down the line, the same guys would be hired with a false certificate or something. We are not being upfront with these people. Come with 6,000 rupees at our industry. Let's face it, let's take these people into our industry, groom them or do whatever. They are anyway going. They're going to your small time players and then you are hiring them at 3.5 lakhs to 6 lakhs rupees. So why not take them into the ecosystem? Today, all of us are not taking them into the ecosystem, and this is bringing a lot of misery to everyone. The training centers are doing badly. The engineers are doing badly. We are not taking them, we are not being upfront to the system. We are not open. I believe we need to go back to the people and say, come on, 6,000 rupees, we pay you. Come and work for these companies.
I would just like to take it head on because I will give up. Since your question is very generalized, I will give my experience. The first thing you must admit, and I'm saying with a very lot of data, the difference between the best and the rest is growing. Last 10 years, and I say this with confidence, the people who are coming out of the best schools versus the rest is tremendously increasing. I teach management in best of the schools. I occasionally go and teach management in the rest of the schools. And I can tell you that the difference between the best and the rest is humongous. The reason is also the kind of faculty. The engineering schools, if I have to give a broad analogy, are ready to spend money on the infrastructure, because that to me is a hardware. Because the potential client will come inside and then they will look at what is the kind of things are available, right? And I'm saying again, let me be very emphatic, because I also teach those who teach management, and for last 3 years I have been doing this. So let me tell you, at least from the management field, and similar with the engineering, the most of the colleges are not ready to invest on faculty. I can tell you, and Dan might give his opinion because he runs much bigger engineering college than anybody probably runs in his organization, and its most credible organization. See, are they ready to spend on faculty? I can tell you there are hundreds of people who are ready to go from industry to teach. The difference in remuneration is staggering. Staggering. We might talk about United States. The biggest advantage in United States is the only country in the world where you can earn as much as you want to if you are in best of the schools in there as opposed to the corporate. In India, it's huge. And engineering schools, I'm very closely associated. I've seen people